The Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind is a very unique game, a very special game. It's a game that I would best describe as enthralling, mesmerizing, and unexplainably addictive. Nordic Warrior here, hope you guys all had a great new year. So since the year began, one of the first things I decided to do since our tyrannical government decided to continue locking us up like caged animals over the virus that shall not be named, was I decided to replay Morrowind. Now, you guys might recall back in 2018, I reviewed the entire Elder Scrolls series, and the reason why I'm bringing that up now is because if you guys saw those reviews and then came across this, the title of this video is going to seem a little bit contradictory. The reason for this is that when I reviewed Morrowind, I gave it an 8 out of 10, whereas in Skyrim's case, I gave it a full 10 out of 10, and I believe I gave Oblivion a 9 out of 10. So naturally you would assume that I like Morrowind less. This however is not the case at all. In truth, the reason why I gave Morrowind an 8 rather than a perfect 10 is because when you're reviewing a game, it's very important to be objective, rational, and to try to see things from the perspective of your viewing audience. Also to keep in mind that the whole point of reviewing a game is to recommend it to people who would enjoy it. And in regards to Morrowind, there are certain things about that game that most modern day gamers, particularly from the younger generation, would not have the patience for. For example, the fact that Morrowind has very little actual spoken dialogue and requires a lot of reading in order to understand its narrative. Most gamers from this generation who have grew up with fast-paced, story-driven games with expert voice acting and photorealistic character models and graphics would take one look at Morrowind and feel like a fish out of water. Something that no amount of writing or lore is going to convince these gamers to look past. So when making that review, I had to take all of that under consideration and make it perfectly clear that the game was not for everybody, and certainly wasn't going to appeal to this Call of Duty, GTA, The Last of Us generation of gamers. Well, nonetheless, if you're like me and you like reading, and you grew up with more old school, hardcore RPGs and are willing to look past some of the game's technical nitpicks, then the Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind is, in my personal opinion, not only the best Elder Scrolls game, but one of the best, if not the best, open world RPGs of all time. Usually when it comes to role-playing games, I can play them for a certain amount of time, maybe a few hours, and then I need to take a break. But Morrowind is that one game that I am just mesmerized by, and I'm not quite sure if that's always a good thing, but man is this game addictive. It's a game that I can literally sit there all day and all night and play without even stopping. I don't even need to stop to take a break, get some fresh air, get myself a drink, go to the bathroom. Like, I will literally sit there all day every day and play this game if I could, if I had the time. And man, since we're in another lockdown and it seems like it's never going to bloody end, I might just disappear and just play this game for the next year or so. I'm not even kidding. Because the thing that's also great about Morrowind, and what makes it really stand out from the other Elder Scrolls games in my opinion, is it's a game that is literally impossible to finish. In the sense that you could play through this game multiple times. I'm talking go through multiple playthroughs, multiple different play styles, and you will always find something new. Now, Morrowind isn't the biggest Elder Scrolls game. In fact, it's actually one of the smallest. It's nowhere near as big as Skyrim or Oblivion. And it's nowhere even near as big as Daggerfall, which came out before it. But man, there's something about Morrowind where it just has content in abundance. Like, the game has so many locations, so many NPCs, so many dungeons, so many caves, so many small islands, so many different creatures and enemy types to run into in the wilderness. You know, you'll fight bandits, you'll fight Daedra, you'll fight all sorts of different grotesque creatures. You know, you'll fight zombies, you'll fight vampires, you'll fight ghosts, you'll fight liches, you know, you'll fight creepy demonic insects, you'll fight all sorts of different enemies in this game, and there's always something new. There's always new items, there's always new artifacts. That's one of the things I love about Morrowind, is it has such an abundance of unique, legendary artifacts. And unlike some of the other Elder Scrolls games where you have to do specific quests to find a lot of these artifacts, In Morrowind, how it's done is the artifacts are just out there, hidden in the world, and if you know where they are, and if you have the skill and the understanding of the game's inner workings, you can literally go straight to where these artifacts are and get them. And since I've played Morrowind so many times over the years, and I pretty much know the game back to back, I'm able to acquire several legendary items quicker than you're supposed to. And that's one of the things I love about it, man. It's a game that really, really rewards you for using your brain. It's very intellectually stimulating. I mentioned earlier how a lot of modern day gamers just don't have the patience for this type of thing, but Morrowind doesn't have fast travel. So unlike Oblivion and Skyrim, where you're constantly traveling back and forth between the same locations and traveling right away, knowing where they are because you have quest markers and fast travel, in Morrowind you have to follow directions. You have to use your map, sort of your orienteering skills. You know, a character will give you a particular location to go to, and you have to figure out on your own and pinpoint where that location is on your map, and also in the certain area. Like, for example, they'll tell you to go to a place that's near a certain cave or before you reach a certain bridge, and they'll tell you which twists and turns to make to get there. And it's a game that you can easily get lost in. It's a game that you can easily be in the middle of a quest trying to find a certain area to continue that quest, and then you take a wrong turn and you find yourself in a new quest, or you find yourself pursuing a new item. Like, one of the coolest things that happened to me when I was playing Morrowind, I remember the first time I found the shield, Eledian's Ward. I found that shield completely by accident, where I was basically just wandering the wilderness and looting that particular dungeon. Basically, I had maxed out my lockpicking skills, and I remember this was my first time finding that shield. I was basically just looting that dungeon, and there was all sorts of crazy loot, and then by chance I just decided to look up and seen this beautiful shield on the wall, and that was just such a great experience because it turned out to be one of the legendary artifacts and the strongest shield in the game. Many of the artifacts are so well hidden that you wonder how anybody ever found them in the first place. One of the coolest artifacts in the game, and one that I always go for, is the Dragonbone Curious. And basically it's a curious made of dragon bone, obviously, and it has the ability to make your character immune to fire. So since I play as a Nord, and my character is already immune to frost, wearing the Dragonbone Curious also makes me immune to fire. So my character is basically immune to all the elements and resistant to shock, so it makes my character damn near invincible when fighting mages. So there are so many cool things like that that you can find and add to your character, and depending on the type of character that you're playing as and the type of playstyle that you use, you'll really find the items that suit you best. One of the most liberating things about Morrowind, and what really sets it apart from the other games in the Elder Scrolls series in my opinion, is the fact that you are basically free to do what you want when you want. What I mean by that is, in the Elder Scrolls games that came out after, for example in Skyrim and Oblivion, you have certain characters that are made essential, and the reason for this is because those characters are basically tied into some plot, or maybe it could be to do with the main story, or maybe just one of the side quests, and they don't want you killing that character off and interfering with the game's narrative, so to speak. Well, in Morrowind, they don't care about that at all. You can literally kill anybody. Like, if you want to, if you're a sick in the head psychopath like me, you know, you might want to go and massacre the whole entire island, and you can literally do that if you want to, including characters who are essential to the plot. What will happen is, if you slaughter one of these characters, you'll get like a little message that will pop up saying that you'll basically have to restart or reload a previous save if you want to continue on in the story past the point where you need this character. So it does indicate to you that what you've done is essentially broken the game's story. But the fact that you can do that, the fact that you have the opportunity and the choice to literally blow the game's main narrative out of the water by taking your fate into your own hands, I find that really excellent. It's just fantastic, and it's so liberating when you get used to the restrictions that were put on later games in the series, and then you go back to this and realise just how liberating it was. It's really fantastic, and it really gives you the element of choice and the feeling of freedom within this world. For example, you can literally go directly to Red Mountain at the beginning of the game and challenge Dagoth Ur, who's the final boss of the game. Now, you'll get your ass kicked, he's incredibly overpowered, but you can try. And if you understand the inner workings of the game, if you understand all the loopholes and all the exploits and what items to use and what strategies to use, it's actually possible that you can win the battle. You can literally go directly to Dagoth Ur. And like I said, if you understand the loopholes, you understand the game's inner workings and exploits, you can actually defeat him. I'm not even kidding, it's been done. That's how great this game is. That's how amazing the element of freedom of choice in this game is. I mean, if you want to go and kick the crap out of Vivek, you can do so. You can literally go and murder that character anytime you want, as long as you have the skill to be able to pick a lock and open his door, and then as long as you have the armor and weapons to be able to take him on, you can literally go and fight him. That's one thing that I find so fascinating about this game. I mean, on the Tribunal expansion, if you want to go and kill Almalexia, you can try, but you'll get attacked by a whole bunch of simps if you do.
For you.
So yeah, this game is incredible, and like I said, it's so unbelievably liberating when you consider the restrictions that were put on later games in the Elder Scrolls series. As far as this game's customization, I found the customization here to be so much better than in the games that came out after. Now, of course, I'm not talking about the character creator. The character creator here is very simple. You basically choose your race, and you choose between a template of faces. And basically that's as far as it goes in terms of creating your actual character's model. You will get to choose your own class, and you can even create your own class if you want to. You know, you'll be able to choose your base skills and your secondary skills, and basically your base skills and your secondary skills will be what level you up as you play the game. So yeah, the customization and the character creator is totally fine. But where the customization, in my personal opinion, succeeds the games that came out after this, is in the fact that you can literally choose multiple different pieces of clothing and pieces of armor. Like, for example, in Skyrim, you would buy a pair of armor which would essentially cover your whole torso and your legs. Well, in this game, you can buy a cuirass, you can buy different gloves. Let's say your right glove is one type of glove and your left glove is another type of glove. Each could have a different enchantment and a different rating. You know, you get yourself a pair of boots, a helmet, and underneath your armor you'll be able to wear clothes. Like, let's say you've got a full set of armor, and then underneath it you're wearing clothes that are enchanted and give you some sort of protection against a certain attack, or they give you a certain inherent spell or something like that. You'll be able to wear pauldrons. So it's not just like in Skyrim where you have your torso, your gauntlets, and your boots and your helmet, and that's it. You know, in Morrowind you have multiple different things. You know, you can wear 2 different rings and an amulet. Like I said, you can wear clothes underneath your armor, and you can mix and match different armor sets, like 2 different gloves and stuff like that, and it's just so fantastic. Like, there's so many different armor pieces in this game. It's so much more extensive than it was in Oblivion or Skyrim. Like, those games were quite limited, in my opinion, in terms of the unique armor sets that you can find, or even unique armor pieces, like, for example, Daedric helmets, which are extremely rare in this game and are only in a handful of locations. Or, for example, if you want to get a full set of Daedric armor, which I wouldn't recommend because they're too heavy, but if you want to get a full set, you have to really hunt the entire game in order to find them, because they're scattered all over the bloody place. So the game really rewards you for your grinding and for your hunting and trying to find new items. And again, it's a game where there's just an overabundance of content. There's just so much in this game, so many enemies, so many NPCs, so many different weapons and armor types from different cultures. So the game has more variety and more unique armor and weapons and clothing and items and loot than any of the other Elder Scrolls games, or really any other RPG that I've ever played personally. Now, as far as the game's story and lore, again, the game requires a lot of reading, so a lot of modern day gamers, like I mentioned earlier, they're not going to have the patience to sit there and read books and read dialogue text box from characters in order to indulge themselves in the game's lore. But if you like reading like me, then this game has one of the best, again, if not the best, plots that I've ever come across in an RPG. The story of this game is so unbelievably complex and so unbelievably thought-provoking that I don't think I could even make a start on it. Like, it's such a unique and such a overwhelmingly interesting story, like the story of Morrowind and the history of that continent and how it was founded, and the history of the Dunmer and their wars with the Dwemer and with the Nords, and how they were cursed by Azura, and how the Tribunal basically became their living gods, and their powers are starting to decline, and your character is believed to be the reincarnation of an old Dunmer hero called Nerevar. And it's never truly confirmed whether or not this is the case, but basically you're sent to Morrowind by the Emperor, and the Emperor has a vision about what's going to happen in Morrowind, and how the Nerevarene's destiny is to stop Dagoth Ur from unleashing ash storms from Red Mountain and essentially taking over the entire continent of Tamriel with a new Numidium. The Numidium was basically a giant construct that was created by the Dwemer, who was going to be their new god, so to speak. You know, they were going to try and use the heart of a dead god to animate it, and essentially Dagoth Ur wants to recreate the Numidium, or his own version of it, and take over the entirety of Tamriel. So of course the Emperor, after having a vision of this, makes sure that the Nerevarine is where he needs to be in order to fulfill the prophecy. And it's just such an amazing story. It's really, really heartbreaking when you really get into the backstory of it, and there's so much tragedy there, and so much grief and regret and war. And it's just such a beautiful plot with such amazing lore, interesting characters, and if you can look back the fact that you have to read it rather than listen to it, it makes it so much better. It really does. Like, if you can look past that and just overlook that minor issue for modern day gamers, because this game has one of the most amazing lore and most amazing stories that I think I've ever come across. So yeah, Morrowind is an amazing game, and there's no way that I could really do it justice. And I've got to be honest, I kind of regret giving it only an 8 out of 10. I mean, I recently re-listened to my review of Morrowind from 2018, and I sounded a little bit pessimistic in that review. You know, I didn't come across as enthusiastic and as much of a fan of the game as I actually am. I think the game is an absolutely legendary game. It's one of my favourite games of all time, and in retrospect, I would actually give it a 10 out of 10. I genuinely would, because the issues that I highlighted in the review don't bother me personally. So from my personal perspective, this game is practically flawless. I have no issue with it. And like I said, I've been playing it non-stop over the past week or so, and I'm really enjoying revisiting it, and I can't wait to get back on it, if I'm being honest. I might go back on it later today. So yeah, Morrowind is a legendary game. One of the best, if not the best, open world RPGs of all time. Let me know what you guys think. Stay tuned for more retrospective video game reviews. I have a few reviews coming. One review that I'm planning to get out within the next couple of months or so is I'm planning to review Fallout New Vegas. I do own that game, and I'm ready to play it and review it. So yeah, stay tuned for that. Let me know what you guys think anyway. Thanks for watching, and God bless.